Vincent the Wolf Romano had built his empire on fear. For 23 years, his name alone could silence entire neighborhoods. His mansion stood like a fortress on the hilltop, surrounded by walls that kept the world out and his secrets in. Nobody entered without permission. Nobody questioned his authority, and nobody, absolutely nobody, mentioned Elena Vasquez. Not anymore. The painting had haunted that wall for exactly 412 days. Vincent knew because he counted each one. Elena's smile looked down at him every morning when he walked down the marble staircase, and every night when he climbed back up. Her dark hair fell over her shoulders in the portrait, caught mid-laugh at something the artist had said during the sitting. Vincent remembered that day perfectly. He remembered everything about Elena. But standing there now, staring at this 8-year-old girl with dirt on her cheeks and determination in her posture, Vincent felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Panic. "Maria," the girl said quietly, stepping closer to the portrait. "That's my mama, Maria Elena Vasquez." The name hit Vincent like a physical blow. His hand reached for his chest, where an old bullet wound still hurt on rainy days. Around him, his most trusted men shifted uncomfortably. They knew the rules. Elena's name was forbidden. Her story was buried. Her memory was supposed to be locked away forever. Yet here stood living proof that some secrets refused to stay hidden. "What's your name, little one?" Vincent asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Isabella. Isabella Vasquez." She wiped her nose with the back of her hand, leaving a streak across her face. "I've been looking for my mama for 3 weeks now. The police won't help me. They say she probably just left, but mama wouldn't leave me. She promised she'd never leave me." Vincent's chest tightened. The girl spoke with Elena's accent, that soft sound that had once made his heart race. She had Elena's stubborn chin, the same way of tilting her head when she was thinking. But those eyes, those were unmistakably his own. "Where did you find this place?" Vincent managed to ask. Isabella reached into her backpack and pulled out a crumpled piece of paper. "Mama had this hidden in her jewelry box. It has this address written on it, and it says Vincent at the bottom. She used to look at it sometimes when she thought I wasn't watching. She'd cry and put it away real fast." The paper trembled in Vincent's hands as he took it. His own handwriting stared back at him, faded but still readable. It was the note he'd written Elena over a year ago. The note that was supposed to bring her to safety. The note she'd never answered. "Isabella," he said carefully, "tell me about your mother. What happened to her?" The little girl's composure finally cracked. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she spoke. She was acting weird for weeks before she disappeared. Scared. She kept looking out the windows and jumping at every little noise. She made me promise that if anything happened to her, I should come find Vincent at this address. She said Vincent would protect me. Vincent's blood ran cold. If Elena had been scared, if she'd been preparing Isabella for the worst, then his enemies had found her. The very people he tried to protect her from had tracked her down anyway. She left me with Mrs. Rodriguez next door. Isabella continued, said she'd be back in 2 hours. That was 21 days ago. Mrs. Rodriguez can't keep me anymore. She says I have to go to the children's home tomorrow unless someone comes for me. The weight of realization crashed down on Vincent like an avalanche. Elena hadn't abandoned him. She hadn't chosen another life. She'd been running, hiding, protecting their secret. And now that secret stood before him in torn jeans and a faded pink t-shirt, looking at him with eyes that mirrored his own. If this moment broke your heart, comment "protect her," because some children deserve every chance at safety. "Boss," Tony whispered urgently from beside him. "We need to discuss this privately." But Vincent couldn't look away from Isabella. She was studying his face now, searching for something. Recognition, maybe, or hope. "You knew my mama, didn't you?" she asked. Really knew her, not just her picture. Vincent knelt down to Isabella's level, his expensive suit touching the marble floor. Up close, the resemblance was undeniable. She had his dark eyebrows, his strong jawline softened by youth, even the same small scar on her chin that he'd gotten in childhood. "Yes, little bird," he said, using Elena's pet name for her daughter without thinking. "I knew your mama very well." Isabella's eyes widened. She called me that little bird. How did you know? The truth balanced on the edge of Vincent's tongue. Dangerous and life-changing. Around him, his men waited for orders that could change everything. The mansion felt smaller suddenly, as if the walls were closing in on secrets that had grown too large to contain. Isabella, Vincent said slowly, I think your mama was trying to protect you from some very dangerous people. People who might hurt you to get to someone they wanted to hurt even more. Who? Isabella demanded with a fierceness that reminded Vincent painfully of Elena. Who wanted to hurt us? Vincent stood up, his mind racing through possibilities and consequences. If Elena was truly gone, if his enemies had silenced her permanently, then Isabella was all that remained of the woman he'd loved more than his own life. She was also the daughter he'd never known existed, the child who carried both their blood, both their stubborn spirits, both their capacity for love and loyalty. But she was also a target now, a weapon his enemies could use against him. The kind of people, Vincent said grimly, who don't forgive, who don't forget, and who never stop hunting. Hunting. Isabella stepped back as Vincent's words sank in. The dangerous people, the ones who never stopped hunting. Her small hands clenched into fists at her sides. But why? She whispered. Why would anyone want to hurt my mama? She never hurt anybody. She worked at the flower shop. She made me breakfast every morning. She helped old Mr. Garcia with his groceries. She was good. Vincent felt his heart shatter into pieces he didn't know could break. Elena had built a simple life, a pure life away from the darkness that surrounded him. Yet somehow that darkness had found her anyway. Tony, Vincent said without turning around. Clear the room now. His men filed out silently, their footsteps echoing against the marble until only Vincent and Isabella remained in the vast entryway. The portrait of Elena watched over them both. Her painted smile, a cruel reminder of happiness that had been stolen away. Isabella, I need to tell you something very important, Vincent began. But first, you need to understand that there are bad men in this world. Men who do terrible things to get what they want. And sometimes good people get caught in the middle. The little girl nodded solemnly. Far too mature for her 8 years. Like Mama did. Yes, like your mama did. Vincent's voice broke slightly. She got caught in the middle because of me. Isabella tilted her head, studying his face with those familiar eyes. Because you loved her? The question hit Vincent like a sledgehammer to the chest. How could this child see so clearly what he'd spent years trying to hide from himself? How did you know? He asked. The way you look at her picture, Isabella said simply. It's the same way Mama used to look at that paper with your name on it. Like it hurt. But she couldn't stop looking anyway. Vincent closed his eyes, fighting back emotions he'd buried deeper than his enemies' bodies. When he opened them again, Isabella was still watching him, waiting for the truth she deserved to hear. Yes, he admitted, I loved your mother more than I've ever loved anything in my life. More than this house. More than my power. More than my own safety. But loving me put her in danger. So she had to disappear to keep you safe. If you've ever loved someone so much it scared you, comment, love is worth a risk, because this is what real love looks like. From whom? Isabella demanded, her voice growing stronger. Who are these bad men? Vincent walked to the massive window that overlooked his gardens. Beyond the perfectly kept grounds, beyond the walls and gates, lay a world that had taken everything precious from him. There's another family like mine, he said carefully. The Castanos. They've been trying to destroy everything I've built for 20 years. They found out about your mother. They threatened to hurt her, to hurt you, unless I gave up everything. Isabella moved to stand beside him at the window. So, Mama ran away to protect me? Your mother was the strongest, bravest woman I ever knew, Vincent said. She chose to disappear rather than let them use her against me. She chose to give up the life we were building together to keep you safe. But they found her anyway, didn't they? Isabella's voice was barely a whisper. That's why she's gone. Vincent knelt down again, taking Isabella's small hands in his scarred ones. I don't know what happened to your mother, but I promise you this. I will find out, and I will make sure you're never in danger again. Isabella studied his face for a long moment. Then she asked the question that would change both their lives forever. Are you my papa? The words hung in the air like smoke from his forgotten cigar. Vincent felt the world tilt on its axis. Every carefully built wall he'd constructed around his heart crumbled in an instant. He looked into Isabella's eyes, those dark mirrors of his own, and saw Elena's courage staring back at him. This child had walked through his gates, past his guards into his fortress, demanding answers that grown men feared to seek. She had Elena's beauty and his determination. She was everything he'd never known he wanted and everything he'd always been afraid to hope for. I think I might be, he whispered. Isabella nodded as if she'd expected this answer. Mama used to tell me stories about a man who lived in a big house on a hill. She said he was very powerful, but also very lonely. She said if I ever met him, I should remember that even powerful people need love, too. Tears Vincent hadn't shed in 30 years threatened to spill. She said that every night before bed. She said someday, when it was safe, she might take me to meet him. She said he would probably be scared at first, but underneath he was good, just like her. Vincent pulled Isabella into his arms, holding her as carefully as if she were made of glass. She felt so small, so fragile. Yet she'd shown more courage than soldiers twice her size. She smelled like Elena's perfume and childhood innocence, and hope he'd forgotten existed. Isabella, he said into her hair, if I am your father, that means you're in more danger than you know. The Castellanos will use you to hurt me. They'll never stop hunting you. Isabella pulled back to look at him. Then we have to stop them first. The simplicity of her logic, the fearlessness in her voice reminded Vincent why he'd fallen in love with Elena in the first place. This family bred fighters. He asked. You said Mama was brave. You said she was strong. Well, I'm her daughter. And if you're my papa, then I'm your daughter, too. That means I'm brave and strong and stubborn enough to help you find out what happened to Mama and make the bad men pay. Vincent stared at this remarkable child who'd walked into his life and turned it upside down in the space of an hour. She was right about one thing. She was definitely his daughter. No one else would march into a Mafia compound and demand justice with such unwavering determination. But she was also Elena's daughter, which meant she had a conscience he'd lost long ago. She believed in good and evil, in right and wrong, in happy endings that Vincent had stopped believing in years ago. If this little girl's courage just inspired you, comment never give up, because sometimes the smallest voices carry the biggest power. Isabella, he said slowly, if we do this, if we go after the people who took your mother, there's no going back. Once you enter my world, you can never return to the innocent life Elena wanted for you. Isabella straightened her shoulders, looking far older than her 8 years. Mama didn't want me to be innocent. She wanted me to be safe, but I'll never be safe until we stop them, will I? Vincent realized with crystal clarity that this child understood the situation better than most of his advisors ever had. The Castellanos would never stop hunting her. She would never know peace until they were eliminated completely. No, he admitted, you'll never be truly safe while they exist. Then we stop them, Isabella said with finality. Together, Vincent looked up at Elena's portrait, seeking guidance from the woman who'd loved them both. Her painted eyes seemed to sparkle with approval, as if she'd planned this entire meeting from beyond the grave. Together, he agreed. But first, he had phone calls to make, information to gather, and a war to prepare for. Because Vincent the Wolf Romano had just discovered he had something worth fighting for again, something worth killing for, something worth dying for. He had a daughter to protect and a love to avenge. The Castellanos' compound sat like a cancer on the opposite side of the city. While Vincent's mansion stood proud on the hilltop, their headquarters lurked in the industrial district, surrounded by warehouses and forgotten dreams. Vincent had avoided direct confrontation with them for months, hoping Elena's disappearance would buy him time to find another solution. That time had just run out. Sir, Tony entered the study where Vincent sat with Isabella, who was carefully examining the books on his shelves. I've got news about the Vasquez woman. Vincent's blood turned to ice. Not here, but Isabella had already turned around, her dark eyes sharp with intelligence. You found something about Mama, didn't you? Tony looked between Vincent and the child. uncertainty written across his weathered face. This wasn't how these conversations usually went. There weren't supposed to be children involved, especially not children who looked exactly like the boss. "It's okay," Vincent said quietly. "She has a right to know." Tony shifted uncomfortably. "Boss, maybe we should discuss this privately first." "No." Isabella's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "I'm not a baby. I walked here by myself. I found it by myself. Whatever you know about my mama, tell me." Vincent felt pride swell in his chest despite the circumstances. This child had Elena's fierce spirit wrapped around his own stubborn determination. The combination was formidable. "Tell us what you found," Vincent ordered. Tony pulled out a manila envelope, his hands trembling slightly. "The flower shop where she worked. The owner remembers 3 men coming in about a month ago. They were asking questions about Elena. Specifically, they wanted to know about her daughter." Isabella's face went pale, but she didn't flinch. "What kind of questions? Where the kid went to school? What time she got picked up? If she had any other family?" Tony's voice grew harder with each word. "The owner, Mrs. Chun, she got scared. Told Elena about it that same day." Vincent's hands clenched into fists. "And then Elena stopped coming to work. Mrs. Chun says she called in scared. Said she needed to disappear for a while. That was 3 weeks ago." Isabella stepped closer to Vincent's chair. "So Mama knew they were coming for me." "Your mother was smart," Vincent said, placing a protective hand on Isabella's shoulder. "She knew the signs of danger." "But where is she now?" Isabella demanded. "If she was hiding to protect me, why hasn't she come back? Why hasn't she called?" The question hung in the air like poison. Tony looked at Vincent meaningfully, and Vincent understood. There were details Tony wasn't sharing in front of the child. Details that would have to wait for private conversation. "Isabella," Vincent said gently, "I need to speak with Tony alone for a few minutes. There's a room upstairs with books and games. Would you mind waiting there?" Isabella studied his face with those sharp eyes. "You're going to talk about the bad stuff, aren't you? The stuff you think I can't handle." Vincent was struck again by how much she reminded him of Elena. That same ability to see through lies and half-truths. "Yes," he admitted, "but not because you can't handle it. Because I need to understand all the details before we decide what to do next." Isabella nodded slowly. "Okay, but you have to promise to tell me the truth afterward. All of it, even the scary parts." "I promise." Vincent watched Isabella climb the marble staircase, her small figure dwarfed by the grandeur around her. When her footsteps faded, he turned back to Tony with steel in his voice. "Now tell me everything." Tony's face darkened. "Boss." They found her apartment completely torn apart. Furniture overturned, drawers emptied, walls torn open. They were looking for something. Vincent's stomach dropped. Blood? No blood. But there were signs of a struggle. And neighbors reported hearing shouting 3 nights ago. A woman screaming, then sudden silence. The words hit Vincent like physical blows. Elena had been taken. The woman he loved, the mother of his child, was in the hands of his worst enemies. "Any leads on where they took her?" "We're working on it. But boss, there's something else." Tony hesitated. "We intercepted communications between the Castellanos and someone else. Someone who's been feeding them information about your movements, your business, your personal life." Vincent's eyes turned deadly. "A spy. Has to be someone close. Someone who knew about Elena. Knew she mattered to you." The betrayal cut deeper than any knife. Vincent had trusted so few people in his life, and now one of them had sold out the woman he loved and the daughter he'd never known existed. "I want names," Vincent said quietly. "Every person who knew about Elena. Every person who had access to my private conversations. Every person who could have led them to her." "Already working on it, boss." Vincent stood and walked to the window again, looking out at the city that held his enemies somewhere in its sprawling darkness. Elena was out there, probably hurt, probably terrified, definitely thinking about Isabella and whether her sacrifice had been worth it. "How long do we have?" Vincent asked. "Before what?" "Before they realize Isabella is here. Before they come for her, too." Tony was quiet for a moment. "If they're watching the compound, they already know she's here. If they're not, we might have a day or two." Vincent turned back to his most trusted lieutenant. Then we move tonight. Boss, that's suicide. We don't know where Elena is. We don't know how many men they have. We don't even know who we can trust on our own side. Then we make them come to us. Vincent moved to his desk and pulled out a secure phone. As he dialed, his mind was already working through the plan forming in his head. It was dangerous, possibly fatal, but it was the only way to protect Isabella and save Elena. Who are you calling? Marcus Castellano himself. Vincent's voice was calm, but his eyes burned with controlled fury. I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse. The phone rang twice before a familiar voice answered. Vincent, I wondered when you'd call. Marcus. Vincent kept his tone neutral. I believe you have something that belongs to me. Laughter echoed through the line, cold and mocking. Do I? I have so many things, Vincent. You'll have to be more specific. Elena Vasquez. The laughter stopped. Ah, the flower girl. Yes, she's been quite entertaining. Stubborn, though. Refuses to tell us where she hid the kid. Vincent's grip on the phone tightened until his knuckles went white. She doesn't know where the kid is. Oh, but she does. And so do you, don't you, Vincent? In fact, I'd bet good money the little girl is sitting in your mansion right now, probably wondering where Mommy went. The confirmation that they knew about Isabella sent ice through Vincent's veins. What do you want? You know what I want. Well, I've always wanted. Your territory, your operations, your complete surrender. And now I have the perfect leverage to get it. Vincent closed his eyes, thinking of Isabella upstairs, probably reading one of Elena's favorite books, thinking of Elena wherever she was. Enduring God knew what to protect their daughter. I'll make you a deal, Vincent said slowly. I'm listening. Trade Elena for me. Let her go. Keep me instead. Marcus' laughter returned, harsh and delighted. Oh, Vincent, you really think I'm that stupid? Why would I trade my leverage for my enemy? No. Here's how this works. You bring me the girl tonight, midnight, the old pier on the east side. You come alone. You bring Isabella. And maybe I let Elena live. The line went dead. Vincent stared at the phone, his mind racing through possibilities. Every option led to death or worse. If he brought Isabella to the pier, Marcus would have both his daughter and Elena as leverage. If he didn't, Elena would die, and they'd come for Isabella anyway. If this made your blood boil, comment fight for family, because some battles are worth everything. Boss. Tony was watching him with concern. What did he say? He wanted me to trade Isabella for Elena at midnight. Tony's face went pale. You can't seriously be considering that. I'm considering everything. Vincent set down the phone and walked back to the window. But first, I need to have a conversation with my daughter. The words still felt strange on his tongue, but it was getting easier to say. Isabella was his daughter. She was Elena's daughter. She was the future that Vincent had never dared to imagine, and the past that Elena had died to protect. Footsteps on the stairs announced Isabella's return. She appeared in the doorway, a book tucked under her arm, her face serious beyond her years. You look sad, she observed. Bad news about Mama? Vincent studied this remarkable child who'd walked into his life and changed everything. She deserved the truth, even if it was terrible, especially if it was terrible. Yes, he said simply. Bad news. Isabella set down her book and walked to stand beside him at the window. Tell me. And Vincent did. He told her about the ransacked apartment, about the signs of struggle, about Marcus Castellano's ultimatum. He watched her face carefully, ready to catch her if she collapsed under the weight of it all. But Isabella didn't collapse. She listened with the same intense concentration she'd shown when examining his books. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. So he wants to trade me for Mama, she said finally. Yes, and if you don't, he'll hurt Mama and come for me anyway. That's right. Isabella tilted her head, studying his reflection in the window. What would Mama want you to do? The question caught Vincent off guard. What if Mama could tell you what to do right now? What would she say? Vincent thought about Elena's fierce protectiveness, her willingness to sacrifice herself for Isabella's safety, her complete faith that Vincent would do the right thing even when the right thing seemed impossible. She wanted to keep you safe, he said quietly, no matter what it cost. Isabella nodded as if she'd expected this answer. And what do you want to do? Vincent knelt down to her level, looking directly into those familiar dark eyes. I want to save your mother and protect you both. I want to destroy the people who hurt our family and make sure they can never hurt anyone else ever again. Then that's what we'll do, Isabella said. It's not that simple. Why not? She tilted her head with Elena's exact gesture. You're smart. You're powerful. You have lots of people who work for you. And now you have me. What can you possibly do against men like Marcus Castiano? Isabella smiled, and for a moment, Vincent saw Elena's mischievous grin looking back at him. I can do the one thing he won't expect, which is I can choose to walk into his trap. His trap. Vincent's blood ran cold at Isabella's words. You want to walk into his trap? Not exactly. Isabella moved to his desk and picked up a pen, her small fingers wrapping around it with surprising steadiness. But if we're going to save Mama, we need him to think he's winning until he's not. The 8-year-old began drawing on a piece of paper, her tongue poking out slightly in concentration. Vincent watched, mesmerized as she sketched what looked like a rough map of the Pier district. Isabella, what are you doing? Planning. She looked up at him with those dark eyes that mirrored his own. Mama used to say that smart people don't fight fair, they fight smart. Tony shifted uncomfortably in the corner. Boss, she's just a kid. A kid who walked through our security like it was made of paper. Vincent pointed out. A kid who found information the police couldn't. A kid who's been surviving on her own for 3 weeks. He looked at Isabella with new respect. Tell me your plan. Isabella set down the pen and pointed to her crude drawing. The pier has 3 ways in and out, right? Marcus will expect you to come from a main entrance, because that's what normal people do, but we're not normal people. Vincent felt his chest tighten with an emotion he couldn't name. Pride, maybe, or terror at how much she reminded him of himself at that age. Go on. You taught Mama about being careful, didn't you? About watching for danger. Isabella's voice grew softer. She knew things, secret things, like how to disappear, like how to hide, like how to make people think she was somewhere she wasn't. The pieces clicked into place in Vincent's mind. Elena hadn't just been running scared. She'd been using techniques he taught her years ago when they first fell in love, and he'd worried about keeping her safe. She left you clues, he realized. Isabella nodded and reached into her backpack again. This time she pulled out a small notebook, its pages worn and creased. Mama's journal. I found it hidden under my mattress the night she disappeared. She wrote it for me. Vincent's hands shook as he took the notebook. Elena's familiar handwriting filled the pages. But these weren't random thoughts. They were instructions, detailed plans, escape routes, safe houses, and most importantly, a complete breakdown of the Castiano operation that Elena had somehow managed to gather. How did she know all this? Vincent whispered. She was watching them watch us, Isabella said simply. For weeks before she disappeared, she followed them sometimes when I was at school. She took pictures. She wrote down names and addresses and when they changed shifts. Vincent flipped through pages of intelligence that would have impressed his most experienced operatives. Elena had documented guard rotations, security weaknesses, meeting locations, even personal habits of key Castiano family members. Your mother was incredible, he breathed. She was scared, Isabella corrected. But she was smart about being scared, and she left me everything I need to find you and help you find her. Tony leaned over Vincent's shoulder to look at the journal. Boss, this is better intel than we've gathered in 5 years of trying. Vincent looked at his daughter with awe. You've been carrying this around for 3 weeks. I couldn't read all of it at first. Some words were too big, but I kept trying because I knew Mama left it for a reason. Isabella's voice grew stronger, and now I know what the reason was. She knew someday you'd need to save her, and she knew I'd be the one to help you do it. If a mother's love and sacrifice just moved you to tears, comment, "A mother's love conquers all," and share this story with someone who needs to believe and love again. The plan forming in Vincent's mind was dangerous beyond measure. But looking at Elena's careful intelligence gathering and Isabella's unwavering determination, he began to see possibilities he'd missed before. 6 months later, Vincent watched Isabella chase butterflies through the mansion's garden while Elena sat beside him on the marble steps, her hand intertwined with his. The Castiano family was nothing more than a memory now. Their empire crumbled by the combined intelligence of a missing mother and the courage of an 8-year-old girl who refused to give up. Elena had survived her captivity, hidden in a warehouse that Isabella's journal had pinpointed with surgical precision. The rescue hadn't been easy, but it had been swift and decisive. When the smoke cleared, Vincent had his family back, and his enemies had learned why you never underestimate the power of love wrapped in determination. Isabella ran toward them now, her laughter echoing off the walls that had once known only silence. She threw herself into Vincent's arms, chattering about the flowers she'd picked for her mother's new garden. This was the life Elena had dreamed of, the safety she'd fought for, the family she'd nearly died protecting. Vincent looked up at the portrait that still hung in the entrance hall, but now it was joined by new photographs, wedding pictures, birthday parties, Christmas mornings, a family album written in laughter and second chances. Sometimes the most dangerous question isn't the one you're afraid to ask, but the one you're brave enough to answer. Isabella's simple question had torn down walls that seemed impenetrable and built bridges that connected hearts across years of separation and fear. Love doesn't always announce itself with trumpets and fanfare. Sometimes it walks through your front door in torn shoes and a backpack, demanding answers you thought you'd buried forever. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, it gives you the chance to rewrite your story with a different ending. If this story reminded you that family is worth fighting for and that love can heal even the deepest wounds, comment "Love always wins" and hit like so others can find hope in this story too.